All right, so section 5.8, we're solving rational expressions, again, the easier way. And then we're going to eventually do the ones that are more difficult as well. But we're going to start off with something simpler. All right, so let me give you a little hint as what we got to do. We're going to have to remember what we call the LCM, okay? The LCM is the least common multiple. Least common multiple. Now, I'm going to show you guys this thing, and this is something you guys learned many years back, okay? I just don't know if you remember it, because when we don't use it, we tend to forget stuff, right? So, the least common multiple is like this. Now, I'm just going to talk about least common multiple with numbers. I'm not going to worry about with letters, because there's a cool little trick you can do with letters. But with numbers, if I were to tell you we have 2 and we have 6, what is the least common multiple? Now, what that means is, what is the smallest number that those two numbers can multiply into? Right? And I don't know if you guys remember doing this. I'm sure you did this at some point. Do you guys remember saying, okay, what are the multiples of 2? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, etc. Right? And what about 6? Well, that's 6, 12, 18, right? We got 24, 30, etc. And I'd ask you, okay, what's the least common multiple? What's the number that they both share that is smallest? So if you start going, you're like, well, 6 and 6, they both have it. They both have 12 and 12. And they're going to have other things in common. Okay? But which one of those is the smallest? Well, the 6. Do you guys remember doing this? Right? Like I don't even know when you learned this. It could be 6th, 7th grade. Somewhere around there. I still remember doing this when I was in school, listing my multiples and then circling the smallest ones, right? So when it comes to numbers, when we're doing the work today, we're going to list them. And you don't have to make a list like this, like all the multiples. But I'm going to write 2 and 6, and then I'm going to tell you, think about it. What number can they multiply into that's as small as possible? Now, if you want to make a list like this, it's fine. But they're hoping that you guys don't do this anymore. They're hoping you just kind of do it in your head and just kind of go through it. But again, if they happen to give us something a little bit tougher, so that, and I'm not even saying that it's definitely tougher, but something like this. So 10, 6, and 8. Okay. So a nice little trick when you do these is always start with the biggest number listed. So you see how I have 10, 6, and 8? Always start with 10 and then say, okay, multiples of 10. Well, multiples of 10, 10. Does 6 go into 10? No. Next multiple, 20. Does 6 go into 20? No. 30. Does 6 go into 30? Yes. But does 8? No. Right? And you're going to keep going. 40, 50, 60. I'm not even sure when that's going to happen, to be honest with you. 70, 80. Okay? And you would keep going and listing these things. Now, these are probably a bad choice that I just did, because these are gonna meet up, I think, at possibly 240. Okay, so I kind of picked some really big numbers, but the idea is this: start with the biggest number. So notice the one that we did over here. I would have started with 6, and I would have said, okay, multiples of 6. Well, 6. Does 2 go into 6? Yes. So that's my LCM. It's 6, because 6 obviously goes into 6, 2 goes into 6. Okay? Like I said, one of these things, I think 240 is eventually where it's going to hit. I'm not 100% positive, but I think that's when they're both, or all three, will go into. Okay? But like I said, bad example in terms. I'll try to make the number smaller. Let's try this one. Where do those meet up? Start with the biggest number. What's the small? So start with the 8. What's the smallest multiple for 8 that will work for 8 and 4? So you start with 8. Does 4 go into 8? Yeah, so I'm done. That's it. Well, what if I try 4 and 6? Well, let's see. 6. Does 4 go into 6? No. Does 4 go into 12? Yeah. So 12 is my LCM. Okay? So this is going to be the hardest part. I don't want to say hardest part, but to begin with, this is the hard part, is trying to figure out what number to use as your least common multiple. After that, it's just multiplication and solving. Okay, so let me show you what your problems are going to look like. But again, this is mostly just a review. This is not anything that you're supposed to be like, oh, I never learned that, because you should have learned that a long time ago. So here we go. Example number 1. Again, these are homework problems. We're going to solve. Okay. And this is what it's going to look like. Now remember, these are the easier versions. There are harder versions that we'll do later. So I got to focus on the denominators. Why? Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't like fractions. So the way you get fractions is you multiply them out. The way we multiply them out is that we end up trying to find the least common multiple. So in order to get this thing solved, I want to get rid of the denominator. So I'm going to multiply everything by the least common multiple of the denominator. I'm going to do a little scratch work on the side. So look at the denominators and just focus on the numbers first. Okay, 2, 2, and 2. Well, what's the least common multiple of 2? Well, you're going to take the biggest number. Well, they're all the same. A multiple of 2 is 2. Does 2 go into 2? Yeah, right? This is my least common multiple, 2. All those 2's can go into 2, right? They can divide 2. So, all right. Now people say, well, what about the letters? Well, the letters are the easy part. List every letter that you see that's different. So I see a letter N, and then there's another N. I'm not going to write it again. And all you have to do is write the highest power you see on that letter. So what's the highest power you see for N on the denominators? A 1. So my LCM is 2N. I'm going to multiply everything in that equation by 2N. Okay? So this is what it's going to look like. Now I'm going to write it kind of elongated because I just want you to see it. Some people don't like to do it this way. This is completely up to you how you choose to do the work. But let me just show you the way I normally write it. So I learned eventually that math gets easier when you write it out in an organized manner. Using colors. My daughter hates using 2 lines to write fractions, so she always writes her fractions like this, and it bugs the heck out of me. I'm like, you can't tell if you should cancel or just multiply. She's like, yeah, but I don't like to take 2 lines. And I'm like, I know, but it'll be easier if it's clean. Trust me. So she still doesn't trust me. She doesn't think I know what I'm talking about. But you see how I multiplied every single thing by my LCM? Okay? So now check this out. 2N cancels with 2N. Notice my fraction's gone. Right? The next thing that I multiplied, 2N cancels with 2N. That fraction is now gone. What can I cancel on the last 2N times half? Just the 2. So let me rewrite. N minus 1 is equal to 3 minus N. That's all that's left. And now this isn't scary anymore. This is just an expression. I can do that. So let's combine my like terms. I'm going to add N to both sides. just to kind of combine my terms. So this is 2n minus 1 equals 3. And then I'll add 1 to both sides. So we're just doing some basic algebra 1 now. So 2n is equal to 4. And then to solve for n, I'll divide by 2. So n is equal to 2. And there's your answer. The key is figuring out that least common multiple and not distributing, but multiplying everything in the original problem by it, every term. Okay? You want to try to get rid of your fractions. If you can get rid of the fractions, then the problems become easier. Okay? The reason why these problems look difficult is because it's expressions with fractions, right? So it looks intimidating. But let's get rid of the scary part. Let's get rid of the fraction. So we'll do that using an LCM. Now remember, with the LCMs, you're going to list every number that you see that's different. Okay? I listed 2, 2, and 2 just so you can see them. But you're going to list all the numbers here. Then you're going to ask yourself, what's the least common multiple? So start with the number. Ask yourself if all the numbers can divide that. And then you list every variable that's different to its highest power. Okay? So let's try this next one here. So we're going to solve 1 over v squared is equal to v plus 2 over 5v squared minus 1 over 5v squared. Remember, I want to get rid of the fractions, okay? So I got to find the LCM. So again, I'm going to do a little bit of scratch work. So let's list the numbers on the bottom. So I have a 5 and a 5, right? So start with the biggest one. Well, they both match, so I'll start with 5. Does the other 5 go into that 5 that I just wrote down? Yeah, right, it goes in once. So numerically, my LCM is a 5. Then I notice there's V's there, so I'm going to put a V here, and then I'm going to say, what's the highest power that a V has? Well, they all have powers of 2, so that means the highest powers are 2. Now let's pretend this one had a 3 right here. If this one had a power of 3, then I would have wrote V to the third. But it doesn't, it has a V squared. So V squared is the letter. Now if there was 2 letters, I would have wrote both letters and asked myself, what's the highest power? So my LCM is 5V squared. Now I'm going to multiply every term by 5V squared. So here we go. So 5V squared times 1 over V squared is equal to 5V squared times V plus 2 over 5V squared minus 5V squared times 1 over 5V squared. Okay, so I'm just rewriting it, multiplying it by my least common multiple. Just give me a couple seconds just to catch up to that. Yeah. All right, so on the first one, what can I cancel out? The V squared only, right? So that's gone. What about the second one? All right, everything is gone. And the last one? All right, so everything is gone there. So what does it look like once I'm done? Well, 5 times 1 is 5. This will just be V plus 2 minus 1. See, that's the beauty of getting rid of the fractions, is all of a sudden it just becomes an easy problem, kind of, right? Just a normal algebra 1 type problem. So 5, equals v plus 1, because 2 minus 1 is 1. Subtract 1 on both sides. So v is 4, bless you. Okay, so there's the answer for your second one. Okay, you're basically just kind of combining everything based on the multiplication of your least common multiple. Let me see if I can, while you guys are writing that out, let me see if I can find one that's a little different here. I'll try this one here. I think after that I might stop, because they're all basically the same thing, guys. You're looking at the bottoms, asking what numbers, what letters, finding out the LCMs. They're not really that much more tricky than that. Anybody have any questions on the two that we've done already? I mean, hopefully this seems like it's okay. It's not terrible. If you're having problems figuring out, ask, right? Ask. By the way, Mr. Leva, did they say that tutoring is already going on? Is Mr. Grant doing it already? So it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays after school, I think at 3:45? Okay, so 3:45 to I think 4:30 or 4:45 after school. I know that. So morning maybe. I know they're trying to for sure.
Yeah, I think they haven't found the morning.
Yeah, and it would be 7:30 to 8:30. I know that. But maybe it's not going on in the morning yet. But you guys, like I said, feel free to come on in here anytime you'd like. So here we go. Next problem. Let's go with this one. 3 over 2x plus 5 over x equals 5x minus 1 over x squared. All right, so again, we're solving this. We have 3 over 2x plus 5 over x equals to 5x minus 1 over x squared. Okay, so again, I'm going to use some scratch work, right? I'm going to go to this side and I'm going to do some scratch work. So I'm looking at my denominator and I'm going to say, let me list the numbers. Well, the only number they have is 2. So guess what? That's my LCM. Okay, if there's multiple numbers, then you can have differences. But if you only have one, it's just 2. So that is my numerical LCM. And then you're supposed to list all the different letters. Well, I have an X. And that's the only letter that's there. But you're supposed to say, okay, X to the highest power. What's the highest power? A 2. So your LCM is 2x squared. Okay, so I'm going to multiply everything in that problem by 2x squared. So here we go. 2x squared times 3 over 2x plus 2x squared times 5 over x equals 2x squared times 5x minus 1 over x squared. I've had students ask me before, do I have to write that step? I can do it in my head. I'm like, go for it. Just get it right. Okay, don't mess up. Right? I've had students before, they're like, I can do this in my head, no problem. But they get everything wrong. I'm like, no, don't do that. It's not working. Okay, write it out. So this is what it's supposed to look once you kind of multiply everything by your LCM. Remember, we do this because we want to get rid of the fractions, right? So what can I cancel out on the first term, the 2x squared times 3 over 2x? A 2. And what about xy's? How many x's can I get rid of? One of them. So I'm going to get rid of the 2, and one of the x's is gone. What's left on the left side? 3 over x or 3 times x? 3 times x, right? So on the left side, it's 3x, okay? But we'll write that out right now. All right, what can we cancel out in the middle term? Just 1x, okay? So that becomes a 1. This is gone. So that term would be 10x, right? Because 5 times 2 times x. All right, last one. What can I cancel out on the last term? X squared. So I still have a 2 there. Yeah, it'll be 10x minus 2, right? You're going to have to distribute that. But let me write it out, though. Let me write it out. So this is going to be 3x plus 10x equal to 2 times 5x minus 1. I just want to write out the step before. If you don't need to write that step, it's okay. Okay, I've had a lot of people tell me, do I have to do those steps? No, you don't have to. Do it at your pace. I'm just doing it in case someone is working at a slower pace or they need to see the steps, and I like to show the steps. All right, so let's distribute and combine on the left side. This is 13x equal to 10x minus 2 because we're distributing right here. Let's combine our x values. So I'm going to subtract by 10x on both sides. So I get 3x equal to negative 2. And then I'm going to divide everything by 3, and I'm done. So divide by 3. X is equal to negative 2/3. And that's it. I'm done with that problem. So this is what your homework's going to be like. Look at the denominators. Figure out your least common multiple. Multiply everything by that least common multiple. Cancel stuff out, right? We're trying to get rid of the denominators, so that's why we're multiplying by the LCM. And then just solve. Remember, these equations, guys, this type of stuff right here, you guys learned that in algebra or math 1 near the very beginning of the year. You actually learned that, I think, in math 7. Solving, they call them multiple step equations. Usually it's like chapter 2 of an algebra 1 book or something like that. So it's very early on. So you've done it before, so you should hopefully feel confident with it. But if you're having any issues, again, ask, right? Whether it be a friend or ask me or another teacher, feel free to do that, or come to tutoring, anything like that. All right. So I'm going to give you guys the homework right now, and go ahead and start working on it in case you have any questions.